Thank you very much, Joe. Well, Peter Beattie, the former Queensland Premier, is one person who hasn't been gilding the lily. He is definitely predicting a Labor defeat on Saturday. Peter Beattie, how bad is it going to be?
Well, based on the current polls, it will be an LNP landslide. In fact, the trouble for the party, and I don't have any pleasure saying this, is that it will have difficulty forming an effective opposition, because the two-party preferred vote is 60, according to Galaxy, and 40 for, that's LNP, 40 for the Labor Party. So that's a wipeout. That's really in proportions to the 1974 election result under Sir Joe Peterson, where Labor ended up with 11 seats. So this is going to be very tough for Labor.
Why is it so bad for Labor? What were the mistakes that the Labor government has made?
Look, I think there are a number of things. The time for change issue, there's no doubt about that. People can find all sorts of individual reasons, but the challenge for, I think, the Labor Party for the last 4 days is to try and rebuild enough support to have enough members to form an effective opposition, because the LNP had a decapitation strategy, that is to target the future, the best and brightest of the Labor Party, to make sure they didn't win their seats. Well, right at the moment that's working, and seats like Greenslopes, for example, Mount Cootha, Stafford, Brisbane Central, my old seat, all of those are in the gun, and if those 4 Labor members lose, then the Labor Party won't have a leader in the future after Saturday.
There is now some federal implications for this, because soon there'll be another state that won't be a Labor state and it'll be a Conservative state. What do you see as the implications?
Well, this is a horror story for Prime Minister Julia Gillard, because what it'll mean around the COAG table, and I've sat there for many years, it'll mean you'll have 4 key states, that's Western Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, all ganging up on the federal government, and the only allies Julia will have at the table will be South Australia and Tasmania. Now, it's pretty clear that Tony Abbott has been up here, he's been campaigning for Campbell Newman, they're very close. He'll be part of an anti-federal government push by the Liberal LNP or Liberal states. So this is going to be a very rough time for Julia Gillard. After Saturday, particularly if the polls are right and the predictions that I've talked about come true, and I hope they don't, but that's the way it looks, then one of the big losers out of this will be the federal government, because they will have enemies at every doorstep.
What do you see as the most pivotal moment in this campaign? Is there something that stands out to you?
Look, I think that people frankly had made up their mind largely before they came into the poll, and if you have a look at where the research is now compared to what was at the beginning of the campaign basically hasn't moved anybody. So this was a case where people had made up their mind and they've just continued to have that position. Most people didn't actually listen in the campaign, they'd already reached a view, and I think you'll probably see that on Saturday. This is the week where those few remaining undecideds will engage, and that's why Anna Bligh's out going through every electorate she possibly can. Campbell Newman's in North Queensland. It's fighting for the very few undecided, and that really will determine whether Labor gets 11 seats or it can get as many as 20. The pivotal number is 25. If Labor doesn't get 25 seats, then it cannot be an effective opposition.
What do you see as the big challenge if Campbell Newman becomes Premier? The Labor Party has run a very strong attack on his personal integrity, his business dealings. Was that a mistake?
Oh, look, I think the issues about accountability after Fitzgerald were really important. I mean, Queenslanders demand an honest government. People can argue about whether it went too far, whether it was too broad. People can argue about that. But I think the issue about accountability will always be on the agenda of Queensland election campaigns ever since Tony Fitzgerald shook up this state and we ended up with an honest, accountable government after 1989. But the real challenge for the future for Campbell Newman, assuming he wins Ashgrove. Now, there really is one big contest left in this, and that's Ashgrove. And the fact that Kate Jones has kept this so close is an enormous credit to her. It's quite extraordinary, really. So everyone.
But can she win?
Well, that's tough for her, but at least it's close. And on election night, everyone will be watching very closely whether Kate Jones can or cannot win this seat. That'll be the real excitement on election night, to be honest.
All right, Peter Beattie, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.